Hello Year 5s and welcome to your maths lesson. Will you please make sure that you have a piece of paper and pencil ready to do your starter? And then for those of you who've got your Teams log in at the end of this lesson, once you have finished watching the whole lesson, you can then log on to Teams for your activity and task for today. Right, so I'm going to start with our fast 5. So here are your 5 quick questions. See if you can do it under 5 minutes and have a go. Good luck. Super, hopefully you managed to get all those 5 questions done, and let's see how well you've been remembering your arithmetic questions. So the first one we're going to look at is our multiplication. So I have 56 times 8. Now, hopefully you will know that this is short multiplication because I'm only multiplying it by 1 digit. Right, so I'm going to say 8 times 6 is 48. So I put the 8 down and I carry the 4. And 8 times 5 is 40, and 40 plus 4 is 44. Right, so my first answer is going to be 448. Okay, and we're just going to delete these to have some space. Right, the next one. This is where children become very lazy and they try and do it in their head. Now, for those children who can do it in their head, that's fine. But in order to not make any silly mistakes, I would rather you write it down and work it out. Right, so we're going to write the number down with the decimal, and I'm going to be timesing to 100. So remember, if we're not sure which direction the digits move, we put an arrow, and naturally one would say timesing first and then dividing after, okay? So when you're not too sure, you can draw a little arrow, and then you can put the word that comes to mind first would be times, at least in my mind, and then divide normally goes afterwards. So there I can see which direction I'm moving in. So I'm going to be moving my digits to the left because I'm multiplying. And now I need to decide how many times, and because there are 2 zeros, I'm going to move my digits twice to the left. So I'm first going to start with the 6 and I move it twice to the left. Now this is easier if some of you have your grid paper or grid blocks, because then you can just count it into the blocks, okay? All right, then I'm going to move my 7. Then I'm going to move my 4 up, all right? And now I have a decimal. So remember, if I have a decimal, I should put it down so that I make sure that I'm going to, any gaps that I need to fill, I need to put it in, okay, with a placeholder. Now, if you do have a decimal in your answer, then you just need to put a 0 afterwards. However, this is actually a whole number, so you can write it without the decimal, okay? The only reason why we put the decimal down is just to make sure that we've put that placeholder there, because there's a very big difference between 6,740 and 674, okay? So have I moved my digits twice? Let me go and check very quickly. There's my 6, I've gone 1, 2, and I've put it underneath. I've moved my 7 twice, put it underneath. Moved my 4 twice, put it underneath. And then I've got a big gap, so I need to put a 0 there. Okay, so if you wrote that or 0.0, you can give yourself a mark. Right, this is a nice basic arithmetic question where I've got to use my mental calculation. So I say 6 times 5 is 30, and I write the 30 down. And now, how many zeros do I have in my number? I have 2, so I need to put 2 zeros in my answer, okay? Right, I've got a negative 7, minus 7, minus 6. So I'm going to start with negative 7, and whenever we subtract, we move to the left, okay? If you think about a number line, and when you need to subtract any numbers, like 5 minus 3, you would start with 5, and you would move down the number line 3 times to the left. So I'm going to start with negative 7, and I'm going to then bunny hop 6 spaces to the left. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and I stop there. And now I go and fill in all my numbers. Now remember, when I'm moving to the left, my numbers get bigger. So I'm going to have minus 7, minus 8, minus 9, minus 10, minus 11, minus 12, and minus 13. And my answer that I would land on then would be negative 13. So my answer is negative 13. And my only even prime number is the number 2. And a prime number only has 2 factors, 1 and itself, okay? And 2 is the only even prime number because factors are only 1 and 2. whereas every other prime number will be able to be divisible by 2, which means it'll have more than 2 factors. Okay, we're going to be looking at adding and subtracting decimals. Now, those children who've been managing to log on quite easily and access the home learning, we did this way back in the first week of lockdown that you weren't able to come back to school. However, we are now going to be moving to Teams, and so I have put a little quiz on for Teams to see how well you have remembered. So what I would like you to do is to watch the video just to get a bit of a recap of adding and subtracting decimals, and then you can go and do the quiz and see how well you do out of 10, okay? So this is also just for children who haven't been able to access their learning as of yet, and hopefully now that they've been sorted with a laptop or an iPad or a tablet, they can now access this learning. So we don't want to move too quickly ahead, otherwise people are going to fall behind. So this is going to be a bit of a revision for some of you, and for those of you who have just been able to get their online learning sorted, this is going to be new for you. So you might need to watch the video maybe twice or go back and rewind it to making sure that you've understood every section. So let's have a look at adding and subtracting decimals. So as I said, it's a bit of a recap. So remember, with a whole number, can you remind yourself as to where a decimal would go if they do not give it to me, because it is a whole number? Great, and hopefully you can remember that a decimal always goes at the end of the whole number. So it will go at the end here, my decimal point, okay? All right, not in the middle between 2 digits, always at the end of a whole number. That is very important. We looked at some vocabulary for our place value knowledge, okay? We talked about our ones, our tens, our hundreds, thousands, 10,000s, okay? And that goes on. And you can see here that we have the word with an S. When we get smaller than our whole numbers, these are actually fractions. These are part of a whole, and we call them the decimals. They get a THS at the end, so tenths and hundredths, okay? And so be very mindful of the spelling of these words, because you might have a question that's going to pop up in your quiz later that will require you to spell these words correctly, okay? So we have our decimal point and then our decimal numbers afterwards. Right, so can you think about the value of the underlined digit? So how much is that number worth? So if you would like to pause the video now and have a go, then you are welcome to. If not, if you would like to maybe hear the first one, how I got the answer, then you can have a little listen and then see if you can do the next 2 on your own. So pause the video, have a go. Okay, so we're going to look at this. We want the underlined digit, which is 3. So if we have a look at my grid here at the top, okay, if I had to write that number into my place value grid, I would write 372.3. So my 3 is in my tens column. Now I just want the value of this. So if I just want it, I'm going to ignore all of these. So I'm going to have 0.3 because I want the decimal. Remember, the decimal is how much it is worth here. And I mustn't forget to include my decimal point. It is not just 3, because 3 would be 3 ones. This is not 3 ones, this is 3 tenths. Okay, and I need to show that there are no whole numbers, all right, and that there are still 3 tenths. See if you can do these 2 now on your own if you needed a bit of help. Otherwise, we're going to go straight into marking for those children who have had a go. Okay, so if you haven't paused the video and you would like to see how these answers are, let's have a look. So again, the 6 would be in the hundredths column. So I'm going to write the 6 down. Right, do I have any tenths? Nope. And I need to put my decimal and then my 0 there, okay? And the last one would be hopefully nice and easy. It would just be 8 ones, all right? So that is some place value knowledge using our place value chart. Right, can you remember what partition means? I'm going to give you a few seconds to have a think about what partition means. Right, so partitioning is when we break up the number, okay? So when we break up our number, we take a number like 43, for example, and we break it up into its component digits, which is 40 plus 3, okay? So can you now pause the video and partition these 2 numbers for me very quickly? Right, let's see how you did. So we're going to have 400 plus 50 plus 8. And we're going to have 2,000 plus 800. My hundreds are looking a little bit sad here. Plus 90 plus 4. Right, I'm going to give you a challenge one now. Can you please partition this number for me? So pause the video and have a go. Right, let's see. So I've got 30 plus 4. So I've got 3 10s and I've got 4 1s. And now, using my place value knowledge, okay, if you put a 0 here, that's also fine, plus 0.06. Hopefully you got that correct, okay? All right. So here's how we partition a decimal number, okay? So those of you just need to understand how we got this answer. Let's look at another one together. If I had to write the number 46.74, look something like that, okay? And then if I wanted to partition the whole thing, I would say, right, how many 10s do I have? I have 40 10s, okay? How many 1s do I have? I have 6 1s, right? Then the 7 10s, I'm going to put 0 points. Remember, I've got to represent that there's no whole numbers here when I'm just looking at the 7 10s. 7 10s, and then nothing here in the 1s. Remember, I've got no whole 1s. Right, there's the 0 placeholder for the 10s, and then I've got 4 hundredths. Right, if you need a bit of extra practice, have a go at doing those two very quickly for me. Right, let's see how you did. So we're going to break up. So 20 plus 6 plus 0.9. If you put a 0 here, that's also fine. That's 0.08. Okay, and then I've got 700 plus 20 plus 9 plus 0. Oh, my zeros are very funny today. Plus 8. Okay, and hopefully you've got those correct. Right. Hopefully that makes a little bit more sense now, okay? If you need one more extra round of practice, have a go at this one. So pause the video and have a go, and then we'll have a mark. If you are understanding this, move on and fast forward the video. So if you need some extra practice, have a go at doing this one now. Right, hopefully if you need some more time, don't forget to pause the video. Otherwise, let's go. Right, I have 100. Now you can say plus 0 if you want to, but you don't have to, because if they don't give me any 10s, then I know that I've got no 10s. So plus 6 plus 0.8 plus 0.02, okay? So if I had to add all those up, it would give me that answer. Okay, let's move on. Can you remember how important it is with our place value knowledge when we add and subtract? So can you think of some of the silly mistakes that you might have seen, or you did even in the previous exercises that we did in the first week? See if you can have a go at having a little quick think about it, even write it down about all the silly mistakes we make. Right, so the most silly mistakes that we see is that we don't put our decimals lining up. And I put a little clue there for you, and hopefully that jogged your memory a bit, that decimals need to line up. You can see here that all these decimals have been lined up, including the decimal in the answer. Those of you who would like to now fast forward to the exercise, if you feel quite confident that you know how to add and subtract, that you haven't made any silly mistakes, you may go on to the activities now, which is at the end of the slide. Otherwise, for those children who would like to just do a little bit of practice, I've got 3 sums for you to do very quick with me now, and then hopefully you will be ready for the exercises, the task. Okay, so here's our first question. So making sure that we're putting these numbers in the block. Okay, so we're going to do this one together, and then I'll let you do the rest on your own. So making sure I'm lining up my decimals, okay, and that I'm copying the number exactly how it is. Now, some of you, what I've seen is you tend to put a 0 in the middle between the 4 and the 8, okay? If you've done that, make sure that you take that 0 out, because the 0 needs to go at the end here, because that is where it is missing And that is where we need to put the placeholder. Right, I'm adding. We need to make sure that we're not making the silly mistake that we're making sure that we're adding our numbers together. And let's quickly go. So 8, 17, carry the 1, bringing down that very important decimal. 4 plus 2 plus 1 is 7, and 6 plus 5 is 11, okay? See if you can have a go at doing this one, and then unpause the video when you're ready, and then we can see how well you did. Great, let's have a look at this answer. I'm just going to rub this out. Okay, so let's see. I've got 42. I've got my decimal, 87. Right, if it helps, put the decimal in to the numbers immediately and the answer, okay? So that you know that your decimals have lined up correctly and the decimals in the answer. Because often, and very often I see this in the work that's been sent to us, is that our decimals are not lining up. Now, what number, if I look at the decimal here, comes immediately after? It is the 5. So I'm going to put it immediately after the decimal. There's no 0 there. I put it immediately after. What digit comes just before the decimal? The 7. And then I can put my 2. Now I have a gap, so now I can put my placeholder, and now I can simply subtract. And again, I'm going to make sure that I'm not making a silly mistake, because many of you I also saw would write subtract and then you would add, okay? Or you just didn't bother to look at the sign and you just added. So please make sure that you are subtracting if you are meant to be subtracting or adding. Right, so 7 minus nothing is 7, 8 minus 5 is 3, 2 minus 7 I can't do, so I'm going to go borrow and regroup. 12 minus 7 is 5, and 3 minus 2 is 1. Okay, hopefully that you got that correct, so well done for those children who did. And our very last one is one that lots of you seem to get stuck on, but it actually is not difficult at all. So if you'd like to pause the video and have a go, please do that on your piece of paper and see how you do. Okay, so I've got the number 7. Now, back from our big question, this is a whole number, so I have to put the decimal somewhere. And hopefully you will remember that the decimal goes after the whole number. Right, so again, line up my decimals. So there it is. They're all lined up. This is my answer. So I can make sure I'm not going to make any silly mistakes. Right, then I'm going to put the number 4, 6, and 5 in. Again, I'm not going to add any zeros between the 4 and the 6 because there is no 0 between the 4 and the 6. This number has to look exactly the same as this number. Right, now the whole number, I have to put in zeros, the placeholders, okay? And that's very important because if I don't put those in, I'm not going to get my answer correct. Because we are subtracting, we're going to have to go and borrow. Because 0 minus 5 we can't do, so we need to go next door and go all the way here to borrow and regroup. Again, we'll need to borrow and regroup. And now 10 minus 5 is 5. Because you can see here, if I just left this blank and I said 6, many of you would have written 6 as your answer. But it's not going to be 6. It's going to be 9 minus 6, which is 3, and 6 minus 4, which is 2. Okay, so hopefully you're feeling quite confident with that. If not, rewind and go through those questions again so that you can get the activity spot on. Right, so here's just a bit of working out for you to help you if you're needing a bit of a check. Those of you who have Teams, you can go and log onto your Teams account now, okay? And you can go and look at the maths channel and there's a quiz out of 10. For those of you who would just like a bit more practice and want to do a few of these first and then go and log onto Teams because you are now going to be having results, okay? So it's a test, which means I'm going to be seeing how much you get scored out of depending on your answers. So if you are wanting just to make sure that you are absolutely 100% happy with your decimals of adding and subtracting, you can do these 4 and then you can see what the answers are and then you can go on to Teams. If not, and you feel quite confident, log on to Teams now, look for the quiz for today, answer the 10 questions, see how well you do, all right? So those of you who would like to pause your video now and do these 4 questions, you can. Also, for those children who can't get onto Teams, you need to do these 4 questions, and then you will need to email your work to year5@thepalmeracademy.com email address for us to have a look. So good luck, and hopefully you guys do really, really well and smash this decimals, adding and subtracting out the park. So good luck. Right, for those of you who just needed a bit more practice, or for those people who needed, who can't get onto Teams just yet, let's see how well you did with your answers. So the first one is 80.55. Second one, 263.54. Third one, 69.06. And fourth one, 20.66. So for those of them who don't have Teams, please can you take a picture of your work now and send it to year5@thepalmeracademy.com. For those of you who do have Teams and you've smashed your addition and subtraction practice sums, go and log on now and do your 10 questions. Good luck, guys, and I'll see you back here later.